And it is fair to criticize people right now to say, how do you guys know that Rian Johnson did a good job when you haven't seen the movie? When you hear certain reports, when you hear certain buzzes, people are very happy with what he's done.
Right.
We're all assuming that Last Jedi is going to be great.
Yeah.
We're all assuming that it's going to be great because of things that we see in the way it's going to be different. Episode 9, drama, once again. Because Episode 9, we found out a couple days ago or last week that Colin Trevorrow, who was the director, who was put in place for a while, was replaced. And I'll tell you what, right now, you make as many offers as possible, and you get Rian Johnson to do Episode 9.
I think that's the only logical conclusion.
You have to. And it is hard to say without seeing Rian Johnson's film. It's the Last Jedi review, and I wound up liking it so much more the second time.
And I'm going to start off talking about this movie by going right to it. I loved it. I love this movie, man. I love this movie.
I think this movie takes a lot of risks. It takes a lot of chances.
It is worthy of the Star Wars name.
It feels like a Star Wars movie, even though, like I said, there's references that sometimes, or moments that I felt like Battlestar Galactica, but inside of a Star Wars movie.
Rose. I love this character. But the moment she shows up in the movie, you're just totally endeared with her. You just love her.
Even though their chemistry between both Kelly Marie Tran and John Boyega, who I like them both in the movie very much as far as performance goes, I think that some of the story around them doesn't work. There's a particular place that they go that I will say that that stuff I didn't love. Didn't love.
And I liked The Last Jedi, but it's my least favorite of all the new Star Wars films, if I'm going to be honest. There are things in there.
Steph and I do not like this movie.
I mean, it's the original trilogy way up here, and then down here somewhere is, you know, you got The Force Awakens, you got Rogue One, you got Solo, and then you got The Last Jedi.
It does not feel like a Star Wars movie to me. It feels like Fifth Element. It looks like the Fifth Element to me. It looks like even the way certain things. It doesn't have that Star Wars feel overall. It's very detached.
Hey, listen, granted, Last Jedi is a movie I have problems with. And, you know, so it is what it is, whatever.
Anyhow, George Lucas, I'm sorry.
Hello there and welcome back. I'm Sam Carrico and I'm explaining why I hate my favorite franchise. It's a Star Wars story. If you haven't yet, please check out part 1 of this video series. That's where I talk about The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi. But if you're already caught up, let's jump right back in. When Grandma read to me, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, I never knew that Humpty's fall was something that someday comes to us all. Lee Bennett Hopkins, Been to Yesterday's Poems of a Life. I initially liked both The Force Awakens and Rogue One, but The Last Jedi just didn't sit right with me, almost immediately. So while 2017 was the breaking point for me with the franchise, it also seemed to be a breaking point for the franchise in general. In June, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the directors of the spin-off Solo: A Star Wars Story, were fired by Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Reports at the time indicated that Lord and Miller were making the film too comedic for Kennedy and screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan. Veteran filmmaker Ron Howard was brought in to complete the project, reshooting around 70% of the film. But that's not all. In September of that year, director Colin Trevorrow left production of Episode 9, making him the 3rd Star Wars director to part ways with Lucasfilm before the film could be completed. Apparently, Kathleen Kennedy wasn't satisfied with any of the screenplay drafts that Trevorrow turned in. His original script would later be leaked online under the title Duel of the Fates. From what I've seen, it's arguably better than The Last Jedi and the Episode 9 we got, but probably wouldn't have been good enough to save this franchise either. Several directors were considered to replace Trevorrow. Rian Johnson turned down an offer to direct. David Fincher was also considered, but ultimately J.J. Abrams would return to put this trilogy to bed. Going from Abrams to Johnson and back to Abrams just highlights how dumb of a strategy it was for Lucasfilm to treat the sequels like a big game of telephone. So Star Wars is in shambles. I hated The Last Jedi, and I've been hugely discouraged by Lucasfilm's inability to ensure a smooth production process. So for the first time, I skipped seeing a Star Wars movie on opening night. Yeah, when Solo came out in 2018, I purposely waited until Monday morning to watch it, because I wanted that opening weekend box office to suffer. But now having seen Solo, did I choose the right victim?
Chewbacca? Alright, well, you're gonna need a nickname, because I ain't saying that every time.
Are you looking forward to watching a Han Solo movie as a fan?
Not really.
So we begin our film with the classic long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I expect we'll get no opening crawl, as was the case with Rogue One, since these are spin-offs. No, instead we get a blue text appearing on screen. Are you kidding me, movie? I already pointed out in the last video how much Rogue One would have benefited from an opening crawl, and you literally begin this movie with text anyway? Just give us the crawl. The somehow drastically different blue text tells us that it is a lawless time, and crime syndicates compete for resources, including hyperfuel.
Oh great, another Star Wars movie that revolves around fuel. Learning all the right lessons from The Last Jedi, I see.
We meet a young Han Solo living as an outlaw on the streets of Corellia. Characterization is fine enough. This is how I imagine he'd be 10 years or so before A New Hope. He steals a speeder and what's this? He places dice on the rearview mirror? Wow, these movies really are milking the hell out of an insignificant piece of set dressing. These dice had more plot significance in The Last Jedi than any of the other movies combined, and this film's gonna try and retroactively make them super important. I guess it could work, but it's all about execution. Han goes to the lair of Lady Proxima, the mob boss who seems to run this town. Here he meets up with Kira, maybe the best character in the movie? I love the idea of a female equivalent to Han in contrast to the good girl princess that Leia was. That being said, there is some rough expositional dialogue in Han and Kira's first scene together. The movie basically holds our hand and says to us, they don't like it here. They dream of something more. They want to go to space. We're just 2 minutes into the movie, I get it. Han confronts Lady Proxima, who I'll admit has a cool look. From what I found online, she's a practical animatronic that's enhanced with digital effects. It gives the character a weight and sense of actually being there that makes it feel more real. Nice. As Han tries to escape with Kira, we get a serviceable chase scene that ends with the two of them getting separated. This may be a low blow, but Alden Ehrenreich's screams sound a little too high-pitched to be the same character as Harrison Ford. It almost takes me out of the movie. And don't give me that he's younger here excuse, because it's not like he's still going through puberty. These next few bits are baffling. Here is where the cringe begins. Han just told Kira that he wants to go wherever the Empire isn't. He sees stormtroopers abusing normal civilians. So what does he do? He tries to join the Empire, obviously. After seeing a recruitment ad featuring the Imperial Marts as the in-universe theme for the Empire, he goes to sign up, telling the officer he wants to go
Back here as soon as I can.
I'm sorry, what? You just saw Kira get taken. You both talked about how much you wanted to leave this planet. What would make you think she's ever coming back here? That's not the worst part, though. The Imperial officer asks for Han's name. He replies, Han, just Han. The guy says, who are your people? Han says, I don't have a people. I'm alone. So the officer names him Han Solo. Do you get it, guys? So not only did Han join the Empire knowing they are the bad guys, but his iconic name was given to him by an Imperial officer. That's like if in X-Men First Class, after Eric was tortured into using his powers for the Nazis, Kevin Bacon said, you know what, son? I'm gonna call you Magneto.
That'd be fucking stupid. But at least it would still make more sense than this, because Magneto's a bad guy. Jesus, welcome back to the clown show.
Han spends 3 years with the Empire, just following orders. Our hero, everybody. We meet up with him in the middle of a battle on a mud planet. The stormtrooper designs here are some of the most unimaginable I've ever seen. They just look like regular soldiers now. It's like Disney is just determined to smooth out anything unique about this franchise. Han finally stands up to his commanding officer when discussing their plan to raid a village. I'm sorry, Han, did you think they were the good guys until now? You were already living in a police state and you've seen them assaulting civilians before. Literally nothing has changed, except the movie decided it was done with this part of the story. Han finds out that Captain Beckett, played by Woody Harrelson, and his crew aren't really with the Empire and that they're outlaws looking to pull a job. Okay, so they definitely shouldn't be trusted then, but I guess they have a ship and a way off the planet, so Han says he wants in. He even threatens to turn them in if they don't help. He's gotta be the worst negotiator I've ever seen. Instead of helping out, because why would he, Beckett has Han detained and fed to the Beast. The Beast in question, though, is none other than Chewbacca, Han's future best friend. Han's able to team up with Chewie by speaking Wookiee. It's a little cringe, but not too bad. What's really lame is the origin of the nickname Chewie.
Chewbacca? Alright, well, you're gonna need a nickname, because I ain't saying that every time.
It's almost insulting how much this movie spells everything out to me.
They explained Han Solo's last name and how Chewbacca gets the nickname Chewie. Like, they explained how a nickname came about. Like, they're gonna explain everything.
After convincing Beckett to take them along, they scope out the job. It's a train heist, which I want to give them credit for because we've never seen a train heist in Star Wars, but I've also got to take points away because now we just have regular-looking trains in the Star Wars universe. Again, smoothing out everything unique. It's unimaginative. I've said it all before, but it's worth repeating. The night before the job, we get a little bit of character bonding. The main thing I like about this scene is Chewbacca getting treated like an actual person. Han's also given his classic blaster here by Beckett. I swear, everything significant in Han's life prior to A New Hope happened within like a week. So they're doing this train heist now, and the battle actually gets kind of cool whenever the rival gang emphasizes Empress Nest shows up. They bait us with Chewie's death for some reason though, and it's less suspenseful than an episode of The Price is Right. We know he's not gonna die, so why even go there? I guess it's so we can be surprised when Beckett's entire team gets killed. First, the little monkey man gets shot by Empress Nest, and Thandie Newton blows herself up. But these are basically nobodies that we just met in this movie. Of course they're gonna be the ones to die, and not Chewbacca. Han has to release the payload so he, Chewie, and Beckett can escape, much to Beckett's dismay. He explains to Han that he needed the coaxium to pay back Dryden Voss. This next scene makes no sense in so many different ways. Beckett goes from being mad at Han for ruining his life to letting him run away within like 30 seconds. This makes even less sense when you consider how Beckett acts later in the movie. But instead of running away, Han, like a dumbass, agrees to stay and help, asking if he can still get paid somehow.
Hey, idiot, that money was for the coaxium. The coaxium you just lost.
Anyway, we meet Dryden Voss, played by Paul Bettany. Apparently the main villain of the film was an entirely different character when Lord and Miller were directing, so Bettany was a late addition to the cast when Ron Howard came on board. That's really saying something too, because he may be one of the better parts of this movie. He's incredibly underdeveloped, but his characterization as a subdued but intimidating mob boss is a cool addition to the pantheon of Star Wars villains and makes sense for a Han Solo spin-off movie.
Don't get me wrong, he's no Orson Krennic, but I'm looking for things to like.
Before Han can meet Dryden, though, he's reunited with Kira, who is now a high-ranking member of Crimson Dawn. Or she's like a slave to Dryden? The movie can never decide. Moving on, they all meet with Dryden, and Beckett clearly has no plan. Like, dude, you just failed your space mafia boss spectacularly, and you go to him with nothing but an apology? Of course he's gonna be pissed. What did you think was gonna happen, you fucking idiot? Han suggests they steal some unrefined coaxium from the spice mines of Kessel. Are you guys ready? We're gonna get the Kessel Run. Judging by how delicately they handled his last name and Chewbacca's nickname, you know it's gonna be good, right? Voss sends Kira with Han, Beckett, and Chewie, telling them that if they fail, he'll be out of options. Wait a minute, why is Kira on the chopping block now? The camera lingers on her as if she's like, oh fuck, that means me too. But she's not the one that failed him originally. If I were her, I'd be thinking this guy wants to get rid of me and immediately start looking for ways to betray him. Voss is a hell of a leader. Kira says she knows a guy with a ship, which brings us to a young Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover. This is obviously the best casting of the movie. It's wild that Donald Glover is better as Lando in this movie than the original Lando, Billy D. Williams, is in The Rise of Skywalker, but we'll get there. Glover exudes charm, and his chemistry with Alden Ehrenreich isn't bad either. He'd be a great addition if he wasn't paired with the worst character in the movie, L3. Where do we begin? It's hard to talk about this character in a way that doesn't piss off some group, but let me try. The movie can't decide whether L3 is a freedom fighter meant to be taken seriously, or a parody of SJWs to laugh at. We're meant to laugh at her a lot, but also feel bad when she dies, and then feel happy when she causes a robo-riot. This also introduces a level of nuance that the Star Wars franchise has never been prepared to grapple with. Are droids sentient? If so, why do our heroes treat characters like C-3PO or the battle droids like they're disposable tools? But if not, why do C-3PO, R2-D2, K-2SO, and so on have so much personality? The film wants to simultaneously have it both ways, with the resolution being to permanently imprison L3's consciousness in the Millennium Falcon, which is the exact opposite of her stated desire to be free of human will. If she's a metaphor for women's rights, this is like saying the wife is finally free once she gets locked inside the house and forced to listen to her husband's commands. Don't even get me started if she's meant to be a metaphor for people of color. It's such a confused theme that doesn't make the inclusion of the character worth anything more than just padding the runtime. It also doesn't help that they give her some of the cringiest lines in any Star Wars media.
I'm gonna flip your switch! Good luck finding it!
Han fails to win the Millennium Falcon, but Lando still agrees to help Beckett with the job. On the way to Kessel, Han and Kira bond. She tells him, quote, "You don't know what I've done." She gives Han the dice back that he gave her at the beginning of the movie, which is a weird way to add relevance to the dice. Luke gives them back to Leia in The Last Jedi because they were important to Han. But now we realize they were important because of an ex-girlfriend? Don't tell Leia that, Chewie! Before they land, Beckett tells Han to, quote, "Assume everyone will betray you." Geez, he might as well be wearing a sign that says, "I'm a bad guy." After that exhilarating, action-packed escape from Kessel, they have the coaxium, but they're being chased by the Empire. Han is able to get away in 12 parsecs, and there's your Kessel Run. I hope it was as cool as you hoped. Definitely not an example of how it's better to let things stay implied. I'm being flippant, but it's just a CGI spectacle, which is to me nothing special. They marked it off their checklist though, and I guess you have to do that because everything important in Han's life happened within like a week. Wait a second, why did the Falcon have that thing attached to it until now? It didn't have that when we briefly saw it in Revenge of the Sith. Did that thing get attached and then unattached between episodes 3 and 4? Is Disney erasing episode 3 from canon? Do you really think Solo is a better movie than episode 3, Disney? You fucking wish. After they land, Empress Nest arrives, and their leader turns out to be a girl? Seriously, I thought this trope was left in the 90s. She reveals that Empress Nest is actually a group of good guys, freedom fighters against the crime syndicates and the tyrannical empire. You could even say they're rebels? Han initially wants to give the coaxium to Voss, but is then persuaded to help their cause. Basically his arc from A New Hope. Who knew that 10 years before he gave up being a scoundrel to help the rebels, Han gave up being a scoundrel to help the rebels? But it's too late because Beckett betrays Han and the rebels, initially helping Voss, but then taking the coaxium for himself. Wow, who could have seen this coming? It's not like he literally spelled it out to us. After a brief fight with Voss, Han goes after Beckett, and before he has a chance to betray him again, Han shoots first. Do you get it? Okay, if it hadn't been for all of the other important stuff in Han's life happening in this movie, this would have been a good arc for him. This is where we start to get into the wasted potential of this movie. Kira kills Voss and sends Han away. After he leaves, she communicates via hologram with the real leader of Crimson Dawn, Darth Maul, who survived the events of The Phantom Menace. Aside from being a cameo from a popular Star Wars character, this is a kind of oh shit moment for Kira, highlighting the fact that she's a mirror to Han, but also showcasing what it could have been like if an outlaw like him went down a darker path. It's also clearly bait for a sequel we're never gonna get.
You see, I wasn't the only one who boycotted this movie, at least during its opening weekend.
Solo grossed about $400 million at the box office, losing the studio an estimated $77 million. It was the first Star Wars movie to lose money, and the sad thing is, it's not really the movie's fault. Solo, a Star Wars story, is the definition of nothing special. It's a serviceable space adventure story with run-of-the-mill digital effects. It shows Han Solo doing all the things you'd imagine he did prior to the original trilogy. Alden Ehrenreich is no Harrison Ford, but he also wasn't the worst choice for the role.
Unfortunately, I think the main hurdle for this movie was its close proximity to The Last Jedi. You know, Solo just came out 6 months after that movie, and a lot of fans, including myself, weren't ready to be hurt again. So while we were force-fed Episode 9, when we see him win the Millennium Falcon from Lando and fly off with Chewbacca, that's the last we'll see of a young Han Solo.
Do it. Are you ready for life after Star Wars? Are you a little bit nervous about what the future brings?
Yeah, I'm ready for life after Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, after Star Wars, the check clears. So, life after Star Wars is about to be lit.
Alright, gang, we've nearly reached the end of our cinematic Star Wars journey, and thank God. Watching Episode 9 was like going to a funeral.
We already talked about the divisive nature of The Last Jedi. We broke down exactly how badly our heroes lost at the end of that movie. I told you about J.J. Abrams returning for this film to clean up the mess left by Johnson and Trevorrow.
But how would he try to clean it up? Well, in December 2019, I sat down to watch one of the last movies I'd see before the world shut down. And it was shit from the very beginning.
As our final opening crawl begins, we see the words, "The dead speak! The galaxy has heard a mysterious broadcast, a threat of revenge in the sinister voice of the late Emperor Palpatine." Okay, I feel like I can't get more than a few words into a sequel trilogy crawl before I say this, but at the risk of repeating myself, what the fuck? Emperor Palpatine is back from the dead and you didn't show it to us? Let me guess. Sam, you're wrong. They did show it to us in the expanded universe. Great, another plot hole fixed by a book. Oh, it's not even in a book, you say? Well, what could be worse than that?
At last the work of generations is complete. The great error is corrected.
You're telling me that they included a huge plot point for a major character in the Skywalker saga in fucking Fortnite?
Well, I can't be making the movie just for fans. I have to be making it for everyone.
Yeah, even Fortnite kids. What's next? Is Darth Maul gonna broadcast a threat on TikTok?
I have to be making it for everyone.
Why is Palpatine even broadcasting his plan anyway? Sure would be a lot easier to wipe out the rebels if they think you're dead. But what do I know? I don't even play Fortnite. We catch up with Kylo Ren, arriving at the planet of Exegol, I guess, to kill Palpatine again? I don't know what would stop him from coming back a second time, especially since this movie never really attempts to explain his return at all. What's even worse, though, is when Palpatine explains to Kylo that he quote-unquote made Snoke. We even see a little jar of Snokes off to the side for confirmation.
You serious?
Fucking hell, I was already disappointed by Snoke being unceremoniously killed off in the last movie, but this obvious retcon is somehow even worse. Why would the Emperor make Snoke, the most powerful Sith user we've seen in the movies, just to corrupt Kylo Ren? I feel like that's missing the forest through the trees. Just make a bunch of Snokes and use them to take over the galaxy. If Kylo is somehow strong and you need to corrupt him, why go through the middleman? Just corrupt him yourself like you did with Vader and then you later try and do in this very movie. None of this makes any sense, unless you consider the fact that this is just J.J. Abrams trying to cobble together a mess of a franchise that until now had no cohesive direction. Palpatine convinces Kylo to go after Rey and raises an armada of Star Destroyers from the fucking ground. I have no idea where they came from. Were they being built underground? Did he just conjure them using magic? I'd say probably not, because that would be too stupid, but I wouldn't put it past this movie. So much wrong, and we're only one scene in. Moving on, Poe, Finn, and Chewie are retrieving intelligence said to be from a First Order spy. I'm not sure how they know to trust this unnamed spy. I know if I was with the First Order, I'd think it's a good idea to send out misinformation about our plans. When TIE fighters arrive, Poe lightspeed skips to escape. Remember all the careful calculations Han had to do in the original trilogy? Remember how it added weight to what was happening and made the world more believable? We can forget all that because this movie doesn't give a fuck. Okay, I guess a Poe spin-off novel explained that the coordinates are put in ahead of time and he's not randomly going in and out of hyperspeed. That doesn't change the fact that the movie doesn't give a fuck how it works.
I'm here to review movies. I don't read.
At the Resistance base, we see Rey, what's this, training? Wow, we're really gonna try and speedrun a training arc here at the end of the trilogy. I guess it's better than nothing. Who would have thought that Leia would be the one to teach her, too, considering, we've never seen her use a lightsaber outside of a flashback in this movie. And I mean no disrespect, but it just feels weird to see a CGI floating head Carrie Fisher spouting random out-of-context one-liners at Daisy Ridley. I've said it before, but they should have killed off Leia in The Last Jedi. The Falcon returns to the base, and we see our main three heroes together for the first time. The fact that they've been separated from most of the trilogy to this point feels like a huge missed opportunity and makes it harder to flesh them out as characters. A tense dynamic between Rey and Poe is established at the beginning of this movie, and it would have been interesting to see them overcome it over the course of a couple movies, but we've got no time now. The Resistance are able to decode the message from the First Order spy, which brings us to the infamous line, "Somehow Palpatine returned."
Classic tell us, don't show us, baby.
It's so dumb, and Oscar Isaac looks so done while he's delivering this line that it's hard not to laugh.
Does that reduce the chances of a return for Poe Dameron one day?
Probably, but who knows? I need another house or something.
Guys, remember when we thought Kylo would be the main villain of Episode 9? Remember how cool we thought it would be to see how he acts without an old Sith master influencing his decisions? Fuck that, let's do the Emperor again.
I mean, Last Jedi sucked, but at least it gave us a new direction to take the villain formula. JJ's not only pissing on that, but further ruining the ending to Return of the Jedi. Now Anakin didn't even really defeat Palpatine when he redeemed himself and saved his son. Literally every aspect of this happy ending has since been undone. Thanks so much, Disney. Mary from Lord of the Rings tells us that Palpatine probably came back through dark science or cloning. Quote, secrets only the Sith knew. Holy shit, only the Sith? I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that the ruling council on Kamino weren't Sith. I mean, are you really telling me that Dr. Nala Se was a secret Sith Lord?
Do you even know who Nala Se is, JJ? Justice for Nala Se.
Poe tells us about the Final Order, Palpatine's fleet conjured by magic, and explains that attacks on all free worlds will begin in 16 hours. This has got to be the worst villain plan in movie history. Fucking idiot, you have the advantage now. Yeah, I mean, it would have been better to attack while they think you're dead, but they're entirely unprepared. Launch the invasion now! This time clock makes no sense, and it's very limiting from a writing perspective. Now we have to keep in mind that everything that happens from this point on is within 16 hours, not even a day. Rey reads in the sacred Jedi texts about a Sith Wayfinder that Luke was looking for to take him to Exegol. Wait, I thought Luke wanted to die. Did he give up looking for Exegol and then decide to die? Or did he give up looking for Exegol and then start training Ben Solo? Either way, another example of our hero, Luke Skywalker, giving up. Oh joy, thank God for Rey. Back with the First Order, Kylo Ren fixes the helmet he destroyed in The Last Jedi. I love the petty nature of JJ undoing everything that Rian Johnson did, even down to the aesthetic shit like Kylo's helmet.
Take that ridiculous thing off.
It's so passive-aggressive. The Knights of Ren are also back after being forgot about for a movie and a half. They even have to remind the audience who they are in case we forgot.
Knights of Ren. Goals.
Absolutely terrific dialogue. Great job, guys. The only way this could be more expository and unnatural would be if a text literally came on the screen saying, "These are the Knights of Ren," with an arrow pointed to them. We also meet Grand Admiral Pride here. He's very underdeveloped, but Richard Grant is a welcome addition to the cast and turns in a fun villain performance. I'm glad we get at least something to balance out Hux, because he's completely a joke by this point. Our heroes arrive at Pisana, which is, you'll never believe this, a desert planet. I know, could you imagine a desert planet in Star Wars? The indigenous community is holding a festival that takes place once every 44 years. Wow, what a coincidence.
That was lucky.
What isn't lucky, though, is that Rey has another forced Skype call with Kylo Ren here. He takes a necklace from her, and this necklace is so specific that he's able to trace it back to her exact location. Again, this is using a necklace. But at that exact moment, Lando Calrissian shows up to help. Holy shit, another coincidence.
That was lucky.
Lando explains that he initially came with Luke to Pisana to search for the Sith Wayfinder, which I guess means he's been on this planet ever since Luke left? Jesus, do these people have lives? Does JJ think that these are just video game NPCs that will walk around in circles until a main character interacts with them?
Yes. Yes, he does.
The First Order shows up and we get a riveting chase sequence, giving us another iconic line.
They fly now? They fly now!
Yes, like cloning, the movie kind of forgot that jetpacks existed in Star Wars before now.
They've been using them since the Clone Wars.
Don't you get the feeling this was made by fans for fans? It definitely doesn't feel like a soulless cash grab.
I need another house or something.
We get a couple more really dumb moments during this chase. BB-8 tries to help, but is ignored by Rey, so then he takes it upon himself to launch a firework at the pursuing stormtroopers, which helps Rey shoot them. Rey then says,
"Never underestimate a droid!"
This movie's really working overtime to add some weight to CGI Carrie Fisher's random lines, and it feels like it has to hold our hand through the whole process. Disrespectful on so many levels. At another point, Finn throws a rope at one of the pursuing stormtroopers, which gets caught up in the stormtrooper's tire and causes him to crash. Wow, if only we had vehicles that could float, you know, like the ones we saw in the first fucking movie. Why has technology regressed in the last 40 years? This would be like me driving a 2006 Dodge Stratus in the year 2023. Oh wait, Rey and the gang find the ship they're looking for, but at the last minute they get attacked by a stormtrooper on a jetpack.
They fly now!
And get sucked into the quicksand. Finn tries to tell Rey something he's never said to her before, but goes right under before he could get the words out. It sounds like it must have been important, so it's really weird that the movie just drops this plot thread. Was he gonna say he loves her? That seems to be the most logical conclusion, but J.J. Abrams has said that Finn was gonna tell Rey that he's force sensitive. What? It's even worse if you just dropped that plot thread. Also, when has he shown to be force sensitive in any way? You can't say it's when he fought Kylo in Force Awakens because we know that anyone can turn on a lightsaber regardless of force sensitivity. I'm just not buying it. This interaction is basically pointless. While underground, Rey finds the Sith dagger with directions to the Wayfinder they've been looking for. Holy shit, another coincidence. I mean, they thought it was on the ship they've been searching the whole planet for, but it was actually in this hole they just accidentally fell into. Wow.
That was lucky!
Also, how many MacGuffins does this movie have? We need a thing to get to another thing to go to another place. I'm getting a headache. Down here they encounter a giant wounded snake that Rey heals using the Force. Wait, Force healing? When did we establish she could do that? Oh, in an episode of Mandalorian that aired a day before the movie came out. Now there's one thing that isn't a coincidence.
That was lucky!
Oh, shut up! As they're attempting to escape, Rey decides it's time for a Mexican standoff with Kylo Ren. Kylo charges at her in his TIE fighter and she cuts through it like it's nothing. I have no idea if she's still trying to save Ben Solo or if she's just back to trying to kill Kylo Ren. Honestly, I think it depends on the scene. What I do know is that there's no way Kylo should have survived this. His ship crashes, spins wildly out of control, then explodes. I don't even get the time to comprehend that though, because then Rey and Kylo start playing forced tug of war with a First Order ship supposedly carrying Chewbacca. During the struggle, Rey accidentally shoots a bolt of lightning and causes the ship to explode. The way it's shot is hilarious too. All you need is a slide whistle effect and we're watching a Looney Tune. They don't even have the balls to let us sit with the impact of Chewie's potential death because we see him alive again 2 minutes later. The idea of Rey's powers growing out of her control is an interesting concept though, and I wish the film was actually interested in exploring that. They keep baiting us with the idea of Rey turning to the dark side, but I don't buy it because she's never had a moment where it looked like she'd even consider the dark side. She hardly ever has a moment of weakness where something like that could happen, but even then, her entire motivation seems to be to bring other people, whether it be Luke or Kylo, to the light. What I'm saying is they haven't developed her character enough over the 3 movies to make this feel earned. Since Chewbacca had the dagger, C-3PO explains that the only way to get to the Wayfinder is to get the dagger's transcription from his memory banks, which requires a hard reset, effectively killing him. Wow, I mean, this is C-3PO. Built by Anakin Skywalker, first introduced in the original Star Wars film in 1977, played by Anthony Daniels all this time, this will be a heavy toll to consider. Nope. Poe, Finn, and Rey are just so willing to kill their friend that it's disgusting.
This robot's been helping the cause since before you were even born, and this is how you treat him? Fuck you.
They go to Kimjimi to kill their friend, where they meet up with Zori Bliss. She used to work with Poe as a spice runner. For some reason, the revelation that Poe was a spice runner bothers Finn and Rey. Newsflash, you guys are all war criminals, so I don't get the sudden judgment. Zori takes them to the cute little puppet Babu Frick to perform the reset on 3PO. C-3PO takes a moment to take one last look at his quote-unquote friends. Ugh, you guys don't deserve him. Outside, Zori gives Poe a First Order Captain's Medallion so they can escape. Apparently a Captain's Medallion, which has never been mentioned before, can be used to buy anything. Basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, and another example of the script just lazily making things up as it goes along. At this point, any character could just whip out any powerful object that will be able to magically solve any problem, taking away any tension. Hey, do you know how J.J. Abrams likes his steaks? Rare. Rey senses that Chewie is still alive, so they infiltrate Kylo's ship to retrieve him. If you thought the attack on Starkiller Base was too easy, this makes even that look like a challenge. Here, they're just casually blasting through stormtroopers left and right like they're nothing. Also, do you guys remember when Force Awakens told us that these are brainwashed orphans and we should feel bad for them? Nah, that's boring. At least the brainwashed orphan stormtroopers they flippantly kill are diverse. The script eventually decides it's time for Chewie, Finn, and Poe to be captured at the same time it decides that Rey needs to force Skype Kylo again. This is where we get the ultimate reveal, our big I am your father moment for this trilogy. Kylo tells Rey she is a Palpatine. He says he never lied to her, that her parents were no one, that they chose to be no one and sold her to protect her. Wait, I thought he said they sold her off for drinking money. Was he lying then? So Palpatine had a son, or daughter, that we never met. We never saw them in the prequels or the original trilogy. Then Palpatine killed his own kid because they wouldn't turn over his granddaughter? That makes no fucking sense. Kylo confronts Rey in person and tells her that together they make a dyad in the Force. I don't know what that means, but I guess it's super powerful. He tells Rey that they could team up and kill Palpatine together. Isn't Palpatine supposed to be in his head? Can't he hear him openly discussing betrayal? Whatever. Movie doesn't care, so neither will I. Just as Finn, Poe, and Chewie are about to be executed, Hux reveals that he was the spy all along. Yeah, the guy who gave the fascist speech in Force Awakens and then gave the order to destroy the entire New Republic is helping the Resistance because he needs Kylo Ren to lose. If so, why doesn't he escape with our heroes? Does he really think there will be a First Order for him to rule after this? He's an idiot though, because after all this, he immediately is killed by Pride. Good fucking riddance to this waste of a character. Having retrieved the dagger and Chewbacca from Kylo's ship, our heroes go to the moon of Endor and hold the dagger up to the wreckage of the second Death Star. What will that do? I mean, it's just a dagger with some inscriptions, right? But I shit you not, the edge of the dagger lines up perfectly with the Death Star wreckage, revealing the location of the Wayfinder. This is so fucking stupid because it means that Rey just happened to hold the dagger up to the exact spot she needed, and it means that the Death Star wreckage hasn't shifted at all since the dagger was made. That's not even a coincidence, it's just impossible. This should not be happening. If my suspension of disbelief wasn't broken already, it sure as hell is now. On Endor, they meet Janna. Literally Hannah, but with a J instead of the first H. Jesus, these Star Wars names just keep getting lazier. Like Finn, Janna is a former stormtrooper who mutinied against the First Order when told to fire on civilians. I wonder what her reaction will be when Finn tells her that he's killed dozens of her former comrades. While her friends are distracted, Rey goes to the Death Star wreckage alone, where she has an ominous vision of herself as a Sith, giving us this lovely image. While she's playing with herself, Rey drops the Wayfinder. Kylo picks it up and destroys it. A fight in the throne room is a cool concept, but the choreography here feels so stiff that I just lose the excitement. The choreography in the prequels puts this to shame. I mean, what the hell is this? Then I can't help but be annoyed when Finn shows up and this starts happening. Rey! Then something weird happens. Leia seemingly uses the last of her Force abilities to distract her son long enough for Rey to kill him, and then she dies. Just like that, all our heroes are dead now. Han in Force Awakens, Luke in Last Jedi, and Leia here. This is how their stories end. Han was murdered by his own son, Luke died sad and alone, and Leia finally gave up on her son and used the last of her strength to help kill him. I hope you're happy. I guess if that was Leia's goal, she died for nothing, because right after she passes, Rey force heals Kylo's wound and then flies off. Kylo has a vision of his father Han forgiving him. I'm assuming non-Force users are incapable of coming back as Force ghosts, so there's no way this is the real Han Solo. I guess it's a figment of Kylo's imagination? So Kylo is basically forgiving himself here for killing his father. I get what they're trying to do here by having Kylo make the right choice instead of killing his father, but it just doesn't work. Oh well, if your imaginary friend says you've changed, I guess I believe you. Ben. It's not like your mom just gave her life to try to kill you because you basically are Space Hitler. Palpatine sends one of his magically conjured Star Destroyers to annihilate the planet of Kimjini. I remember making a video back in 2015 about why the Star Wars movies should get away from the Death Star, and they clearly haven't listened. Now we have an entire fleet of Star Destroyers with Death Star cannons. Where are these resources coming from? It's starting to feel like a kid playing with his toys, saying, and now my toy has this power. We also get a look at the new Sith troopers here. This is a little bit of a nitpick, but their design is just so uninspired. They're basically a First Order stormtrooper, but painted red. I mean, of all the directions you could go in. And isn't the final order of the Sith supposed to be different from the First Order and the Empire? Their troops could look like anything. But no, you gotta get that new toy in, yet make it close to the original. After leaving her friends behind on Endor, Rey goes to the planet of Ahch-To to die, just like Luke did. Jesus, all because you lost the Wayfinder? This girl faces one challenge in her life and just goes, welp, Guess I'll die. As she's tossing her lightsaber into the fire, Luke's Force Ghost catches it. Man, the wig on Mark Hamill here looks way worse than in Last Jedi. Bad wig Luke says to Rey, a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. So petty, but I do love it. If I was Rey though, I'd be a little confused because I thought the whole point of the last movie was about transcending the Jedi or some bullshit. Whatever. Luke tells Rey that he and Leia knew she was a Palpatine all along. Then he gives Rey Leia's lightsaber that we've never seen before. Luke tells Rey Leia saw a vision of her journey ending with her son's death, so she gave Luke her lightsaber so someone else could finish her journey.
The journey she just said would end in her son's death. What the fuck?
If you gave up the lightsaber to save your son, why do you want someone else to finish the journey? Whatever. Rey takes Luke's X-Wing with Kylo's Wayfinder to go to Exegol.
Yes, I get it. It's like Empire Strikes Back. Stop reminding me of better movies.
Back at the Rebel base, R2-D2 restores C-3PO's memories. Wow, we're really resetting everything by the end, just like an episode of Family Guy, huh? The Rebels discover they can track Rey's course to Exegol. While discussing the plan of attack, we're told the Rebels can attack the Star Destroyers because they won't know which way is up, which is just superb logic, makes total sense. Mary from Lord of the Rings suggests pulling some Holdo maneuvers, giving us the line, that move is 1 in a million. I've said it before, but that lady was either really lucky or she was trying to flee.
Wait a minute.
Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million.
That was 1 in a million.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million.
Jeez, if these guys had been around in the original trilogy, they never would have destroyed the Death Star.
These kids today are wimps. Thank you to the greatest generation. Poe gives a rousing speech as the fleet takes off. It's pretty good, but would play much better in a better movie. On Exegol, Rey confronts Palpatine in front of what I guess is the Court of the Sith. Are these guys alive? Are they ghosts? Are they dark side corrupted Ewoks? I have no idea. I really don't know what Palpatine's goal here is either. At first he wanted Kylo to kill Rey and rule the galaxy for him, but now he wants Rey to kill him and let him take over her body. What the fuck? In case you're wondering if the fight with the fleet above Exegol is making any more sense, Finn and Janna are running around on top of Star Destroyers with horses, so not really. Kylo Ren shows up as the redeemed Ben Solo, and he and Rey begin fighting together side by side. It's great imagery. Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley are both attractive. They don't really have that great of chemistry though, and this movie sure as hell hasn't earned this payoff. Palpatine seems to learn about the dyad between Rey and Ben for the first time right here. What? I thought he created Snoke, and I thought Snoke was talking about the dyad in the last movie. Does Snoke have goals separate from Palpatine? I thought Palpatine was every voice inside of Ben's head. Ugh, movie, why am I thinking about this stuff harder than you did? Palpatine really is funny though during this final battle. His screaming throughout is hilarious, and this part is just so ridiculous. You can't say that Ian McDiarmid isn't having fun with this movie. I'm glad he is too, because someone ought to.
So back in my day, Star Wars was iconic. It had influences, sure, but it was the thing that other media tried to copy. I bring this up because this movie blatantly rips off another 2019 Disney property, Avengers Endgame, in 2 ways here.
They try to do their own Portals moment by having Lando and more rebels show up at the last minute. Then, and this is more blatant, when Rey faces off against the Empire for the last time, before she can make the killing blow, the Emperor says, "I am all the Sith," to which Rey replies, "I am all the Jedi." Jesus fucking Christ, you could have tried to change it at least a little. Also, what the fuck? I thought we established that if Rey killed the Emperor, then his spirit would go into her and he would take over her body. What changed? Was it because she had 2 lightsabers this time? All of the Sith court are conveniently killed off with Rey's final stroke, but what's this? Rey dies? That will be quite the sacrifice. Nope. Ben Solo uses the magic, just discovered force healing to bring Rey back. I guess even though Rey has used this ability with ease throughout the entire movie, when Ben uses it, he dies. Just before he dies, though, we get a single awkward Reylo kiss. I'm sorry, the chemistry just isn't here, guys. So the Rebels win. We get a nice little lesbian kiss in the background that can be conveniently cut out for the international releases. I love corporate social progressivism. Definitely doesn't feel shallow. Chewie gets a medal out of nowhere in an act of complete fan service. I mean, he was just kind of along the ride for this movie. Rey goes to Tatooine, which looks suspiciously like her home planet of Jakku. There she buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers side by side in front of the dual sunset. As Luke and Leia's Force ghosts look on, Rey is asked for her full name. She replies, Rey Skywalker. Credits.
I just picture Leia like whispering to Luke like, where the fuck are we right now? Why is she putting our lightsaber here? And he's like, I don't really know. My family died here, but she thinks it's meaningful.
Holy shit, this is a mess of a movie.
The Rise of Skywalker may actually be the messiest movie in the sequel trilogy. While I personally hate The Last Jedi more, this one is so unfocused. Character arcs go all over the place for some and just go nowhere for others. Plot points like the Emperor's Return and the Death Star Destroyers feel so out of nowhere, and a lot of the major creative decisions just feel like damage control. I don't think The Last Jedi is executed well. I've talked about how a movie being filmmaker-driven isn't necessarily a good thing. But I have to admit, I can respect that they stuck to Rian's vision long enough to put it in theaters without it feeling like a checklist of studio requirements. I honestly feel kind of bad for Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, and John Boyega. I'm sure the paycheck was nice, but they also probably expected more for them to work with than what the trilogy gave. That much is apparent in the cast interviews during the press tour for Rise of Skywalker. Adam Driver's career continues to do fine, but I can't help but wonder if Star Wars ultimately hindered the careers of Ridley and Boyega. Don't even get me started on the trilogy's treatment of legacy actors. The sequels should have been about them. That's what the fans wanted, and that's what the actors seem to be willing to give us prior to Force Awakens.
Knowing we'll never have that opportunity again is a real shame.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
I don't have people. I'm alone.
You are a Palpatine.
It's time for the Jedi to end.
I know I might be wrong.
No one's ever really gone.
Hope. Rebellions are built on hope.
In 2019, Disney CEO Bob Iger released his book, The Ride of a Lifetime. In it, he describes the process of acquiring the Star Wars franchise and developing the sequel trilogy without George Lucas. Quote, George immediately got upset as they began to describe the plot, and it dawned on him that we weren't using one of the stories he submitted during the negotiations. The truth was, Kathy, J.J. Allen, and I had discussed the direction in which the saga should go, and we all agreed that it wasn't what George had outlined. George knew we weren't contractually bound to anything, but he thought that our buying the story treatments was a tacit promise that we'd follow them, and he was disappointed that his story was being discarded. Iger continues, quote, I'd been so careful since our first conversation not to mislead him in any way, and I didn't think I had now, but I could have handled it better. I should have prepared him for the meeting with JJ and Michael, and told him about our conversations, that we felt it was better to go in another direction. I could have talked through this with him and possibly avoided angering him by not surprising him. Now, in the first meeting with them about the future of Star Wars, George felt betrayed. And while this whole process would have never been easy for him, we'd gotten off to an unnecessarily rocky start.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them, and that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
Well, congratulations, Disney. You ruined Star Wars for George Lucas, you ruined Star Wars for Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford will never return to this franchise, and Carrie Fisher's dead now. But at least the fans are happy, right?
I already mentioned that The Mandalorian premiered shortly before the release of The Rise of Skywalker as the first live-action series in the Star Wars universe. It started off strong and quickly became a cultural phenomenon. I'm sure you've seen all the Baby Yoda memes by now. I can't help but feel the timing was intentional, almost like it was meant to distract us from the subpar Episode 9, a film that should have felt like a triumphant end to the Skywalker saga. Since then, Disney has only doubled down on live-action series. Mandalorian Season 2, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, all released to varying levels of quality. In my opinion, Mandalorian went downhill in Season 2 when it became the Star Wars cameo show.
I couldn't even finish Boba Fett.
And Obi-Wan was one of the most insulting pieces of Star Wars media since The Last Jedi. My friends John and Alex actually did a series of podcasts with me going in depth on Obi-Wan because that show had so much stupidity to unpack.
Links are in the description.
I've heard several people say that Star Wars is basically a TV franchise now. I can't help but agree with that statement, and it feels like a demotion for what should be an event film franchise.
It's now been 3 years since The Rise of Skywalker, so what Star Wars movies are Disney planning to do in the future? Well, it's been an incredibly bumpy ride.
A separate trilogy to be directed by Rian Johnson was announced shortly before The Last Jedi, but with each passing interview Johnson gives, it seems less and less likely that it will ever get made. I do love seeing Last Jedi fans on Twitter, though, insisting it's still in quote-unquote active development.
Yeah, keep thinking that.
Johnson's trilogy isn't the only project in development hell, though. In 2020, it was announced that Patty Jenkins would be directing a Rogue Squadron film, and in 2022, Taika Waititi was confirmed to be attached to a separate Star Wars project. These announcements might as well have been a curse, though, because immediately after that, Jenkins released Wonder Woman 1984, and Waititi released Thor: Love and Thunder. Neither of those were, let's say, as beloved as the directors had hoped, so as you could imagine, there hasn't been much news in terms of progress on either of their Star Wars films. And you have to wonder, too, coming off of 1984 and Love and Thunder, would fans even want to see their Star Wars films? I do have a suggestion, though, and a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Looking back on each Disney Star Wars film for these videos solidified my belief that Rogue One is the best one that Disney has made. And I think that deep down, the creative team at Lucasfilm knows that too. While the sequel trilogy characters have seemed to fade away with Episode 9, The most recent Star Wars project released by Disney was Andor, another live-action series, yes, but a prequel to Rogue One focusing on Cassian Andor. He was probably the most interesting character in that film, so it's nice to see his arc develop. The world building in the series is so deliberate and well thought out that it enhances the original trilogy, yet doesn't take away from what we understand about it. But the main reason I actually like Andor is the same reason I think Rogue One is so good, because it's about regular people in the Star Wars universe. Cassian isn't a chosen one. He's not a Mary Sue either. He's not even a Force user. He just wants to do the right thing. I'll take that over the sequel trilogy any day.
So yes, on the whole, I've been hugely disappointed by the first 10 years of Disney owning Star Wars. That's why I hate my favorite franchise. But I'm still willing to fall back in love with it. I'm Sam Carrico. Thanks for checking this video out.
What's going on? Solo was a bad movie. Like, why do we have to explain where the nickname Chewie came from? Like, we all fucking get it. You didn't have to fucking tell me, Han Solo, that, like, Chewbacca is too many syllables and you can't say that all the time. Like, we get it. Y'all are